is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And welcome to it, my friends. It's Free for All Friday. Your chance to climb on board and be heard. Your chance to get on board and be heard. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. So I turned on the debate last night for a little bit. And I think Ivy pulled the sheets over her head and said, really? Do I have to listen to that? And it's not because she doesn't like political debates. It's more or less the content, I think.
Oh, yeah. How brutal.
Look, it's Ivy on a free-for-all. Brutal. Why? Let's see. What did they do last night? They united in their criticism of law enforcement. So Clinton and Sanders, Hillary Clinton and the Burn got together to, defile police officers. Sounds like their message is pretty much the same sometimes.
Well, they're talking about social justice, which I kind of laughed and went, funny. Hillary Clinton sitting there on the stage, talk about social justice.
Yeah, what does she have to say about social justice? Sanders saying they need, one of the things that I saw, we need fundamental police reform. Sick and tired of seeing unarmed black people shot by police. He likened heavily equipped police departments to occupying armies, but gee, Bernie, when you start imposing 90% tax rates, you think you're going to do that with friendly constables with a nightstick? I mean, come on. Clinton echoed the same themes, talking about systemic racism that goes deeper, must be addressed in education, housing, and the job market. More of these social experiments, like the Obama administration is already undertaking, where they're going to dictate where you can buy a house and where you can't, so that they can integrate the neighborhood to the right racial mixture according to their magic formula. Of course, in places like the University of Connecticut, that doesn't matter, where you can have segregated dorms for black men only so that they can be more successful. Here's the problem. What's it going to be? Are we going to do affirmative action? Are we not going to do affirmative action? Are we going to, how are we going to approach this thing? So the comments all part of the candidate's revival appeal to minority voters. And we've got there's going to be some big announcements about who's supporting which candidate coming soon, I'm told, which could affect the outcome in South Carolina, which has a large African-American vote. But when Hillary Clinton used her closing remarks to suggest Sanders was taking shots at President Obama, Sanders called that a low blow. And countered with, one of us ran against Barack Obama. I was not that candidate. So there you go. Anyhow, so you didn't care for the debate much. In fact, I think you watched about 15 minutes, so that's all I can take.
That was pretty much it. This is the same thing that you hear over and over again. There's nothing new that they presented that they haven't said before.
Now, meanwhile, in South Carolina, as you look at the race there, so if you look at the race there now, it's going to be an inevitable Trump win, it looks like. Cruz is interesting, but Trump is inevitable, according to South Carolina focus groups. The question is, what's going to happen to John Kasich, the guy who finished second in New Hampshire? He just picked up a billionaire endorsement that was a Chris Christie supporter. So you've got Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, John Kasich. They're all trying to jockey for that next position. But right now, Trump isn't in a position to run the table. And so I we have these conversations from time to time with people we run into. We had one last night. A guy who is very much anti-Clinton, anti-Sanders, and says, well, I can't vote for Trump. And I come back to, well, would you vote for Trump or would you let, Sanders or Clinton, have an easier path to the White House? Well, I don't want to do that. And I ask you, and then we've had this conversation, like, why not Trump?
Well, I started reading The Art of the Deal, and it really gives you an interesting insight to the man. And it just gives you a different perspective on him. I mean, he is very philanthropic. He is, I think, a genuinely nice man. But
you think he's a nice man?
I think he is. Although,
you know how many people just cringed in their cars?
Probably a lot. But the fact of the matter is, he doesn't take BS, and he stands up for what he thinks is right.
And that's what's
and he's
selling.
Not afraid of offending people. So
he's much like your husband.
He's a lot like my husband, yeah. Believe it or not. I've said that too a few times as I'm reading the book going, wow, this guy really reminds me a lot of you.
Yeah. Except for the billionaire part.
Well, minus a few zeros.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Because when I look at Bernie, I add a few zeros. Those are the people voting for him. A bunch of zeros.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, there you go.
Well, I've had arguments on Facebook like you do sometimes with some of the people I used to work with. And I'm just like, how in the world do you not have any sense?
How do you arrive at such a conclusion?
Yeah.
The funny thing is, how many people have we asked? And how have you watched me ask, either in person or on Facebook? Hey, all right, that's cool. Can you define democratic socialism? And they give you some answer that's completely inaccurate. How many times? Almost 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said to a gal, I said, all right, well, if you want to be like, these countries that are democratic socialist countries, she's like, well, that's not what we're asking for at all. I'm like, yes, it is.
Exactly.
If that's what you're voting for Bernie Sanders.
You're supporting a democratic socialist. What do you think he's going to change what the ideology means? I mean, come on. I had a woman yesterday, the day before, on social media going back and forth. I said, can you define democratic socialism? It doesn't matter what democratic socialism is. Really? It doesn't matter what the guy believes that you're voting for. You just kind of like him,
Mm-hmm. He's like Grandpa,
David. Now David, he's a daily listener. He considers Trump to be a nationalistic blowhard with a dead squirrel on his head. Which is an interesting way to put it. I've never seen a blonde squirrel, but I'll go with that. And David, in fairness, that's what a lot of people believe. However, Donald Trump has written numerous bestsellers. He didn't get that from his dad. Nobody gave him that. He wrote bestsellers that worked. He built big buildings. He also was the star of, whether you care or not, the number one television show the number one television show available, period. It takes a lot of talent to do all of the things I just mentioned. And nobody gave him the ability to be the number one entertainment person in America, the number one writer in America, and one of the top builders in America. That wasn't handed to him. He didn't shyster his way into that. He didn't blowhard his way into that. Fact of the matter is, the guy has incredible amounts of talent. That's a fact. You don't have to like him, and you don't have to like the fact or how he applies his talent. But talent he does have. Yeah. It's 14 after. We'll need a little music, Alex. You ready? Go with that. We'll be right back on The Steve Gruber Show.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
All right, welcome back to it. Listen, staying on top of all the ever-changing storylines in Flint and what's going on. Our good friend Chad Livengood from the Detroit News has some new information on that Legionnaires, that possible connection between Legionnaire's disease and the change of water in Flint. Now, it's not a cause and effect here. There's some relationship potentially, and it seems that maybe the state was slow to inform people. He's on the line with us real quickly. You can find this story, by the way, in today's edition of the Detroit News and get more details. But Chad Livengood, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
I know it's early, and I know you worked all night, so I appreciate you doing this. You newspaper guys burning on both ends. Give me an idea. What have you found out that's new and might potentially irritate people again today?
Well, I've been working at both ends for the last couple of days, we went through 24,000 pages of emails, state, local, and federal government that are mostly in the possession of state government employees related to the Flint water switch. We're kind of trying to boil down to some of the main questions here. You know, why was there not public notice of this Legionnaires outbreak? Because it was 2 waves of it, and the first wave had claimed 5 lives up through last April, and then there was another wave that claimed another 4 lives through the second half of the year. So. And there's lots of other burning questions about the whole Flint water crisis and what happened and who did what and when. So we've really been diving into like the record and the paper trail, trying to get an idea of this. And with this Legionnaires, we really tried to take a step back and one of the things we found was that the EPA had a meeting last March. 6 EPA folks had a conference call meeting, and they discussed this in depth about what possible links to the water system and the change in the water, because that's what's really the common thread in all the issues that have gone on in Flint is the change to the river water, the chemistry, the reaction of that water that was potable, it was good to drink, but it was not seemingly ready for the pipe system, this old leaded pipe system, and that's where there's so many things went wrong in Flint.
Yeah, the pH levels were wrong in Flint, as we know now. Didn't follow federal law by treating the water and not having a written plan in place. 2 violations that, my gosh, pretty simple things that if they had been done, we might not be having any of these conversations. But it didn't, and we are. Now, do you think there's still not a direct cause though between the Legionnaires and the water system? There's a possible relationship. There's also a possible relationship, from what I keep reading, back to one hospital in Flint that seems to have some commonality with a lot of the cases. Is that correct?
Yeah, McLaren Hospital has several of the cases can be traced back to them because people who contracted Legionnaire's disease, which is for most people don't know, it's a form of pneumonia, and it's a bacteria that you get, and it fosters in water. It's a waterborne illness. So they can trace it back to McLaren, and McLaren is, they had an expert come in, and basically their expert concluded it was the city of Flint water. But it wasn't everybody, because there was people in different parts of the county who were getting it. It wasn't all contained to the city of Flint. But so yeah, there's still no conclusive evidence, and part of this is because they couldn't get a good samples for the testing, and that's one of the things that comes up in these emails is there's this back and forth about trying to get that, and that basically seems to have caused or been the roadblock to getting a real thorough investigation. You also see a lot of traffic where the county, Genesee County, is reaching out to the CDC, and the state steps in and says, well, wait a minute, that's our job. We're the ones who go to the CDC. So there's some bureaucratic finger pointing, somewhat.
Is it just too much government? We're on the line with Chad Livengood from the Detroit News, who has a big story today about Legionnaire's disease and the fact that people knew that it was out there, and had been an outbreak, and they didn't say anything to anybody. The state primarily, after the CDC had said, "Listen, here's this deal. Are you going to let people know?" They didn't. So what do you think?
Well, in June of last year, the state had basically compiled a report. The state's health department had compiled a report about the first wave, and they, in quote, declared to the CDC and county officials, quote, the outbreak is over. And literally, just as this report is finally kind of making it into people's inboxes, there are more cases popping up
so it certainly wasn't
Genesee
over.
County.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't over. Is this just a case of too much government? That's really my question. Too many layers of bureaucracy, people slow to react. Oh, that must have been the other guy's job. Oh, we'll take care of it. Then something else lands on their desk like anybody else. They don't get to it because nobody thought it was serious enough, maybe.
Yeah, all along here, there are lots of people who have a hand in this and take a look at this, but no one seems to have the responsibility, power, or will to go public with this, and that's one of the major flaws and breakdown in all of this. Tragedy really is that they never alerted the public when they could have.
Impressive, though. 24,000 emails you guys have gone through in the last day or two to dig all of these nuggets out. Chad Livengood from the Detroit News. You can read about that. Pick up the paper today or go online and find it at thedetroitnews.com. Chad, thank you for taking the time. Again, I know it's been a long couple of days because you guys are busting it at both ends. I appreciate you bringing this up to speed.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
There you have it, Chad Livengood, everybody. And find out, because there's this relationship, but it's not, a straight line. There's not this black A to B line that says, okay, here's the new water, here's the Legionnaire's disease. But there are all these moving parts, and clearly, no matter where the Legionnaire's disease came from, the state was aware of it and should have said, hey, we've got a potential issue here, because Legionnaire's disease, this pneumonia, this bacterium, goes after people that are already, compromised in their health condition anyway. Older people, younger people, people that have autoimmune diseases. Those people are the ones that suffer the worst consequences. It's Free for All Friday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, welcome back to it, Free for All Friday. If you'd like to jump on board, you got something pithy to say. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. You got something witty, something clever, something sharp. Share it. We had, Alex told me we had a fella call here yesterday, and we're talking about Flint or something, whatever, and he said, hey, does Steve ever take opposing views? Well, yeah. That's half the fun, boys and girls. That's half the fun. Of course I take opposing views if you've got the courage to call. Because but just make sure if you call, you're prepared. I do my homework, just make sure you do yours. That's all I'm saying. But we take all views here. That's what makes it a good conversation. The phone number again, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. I just noticed on the internet that there's a brand new miniseries coming out, Roots, a new miniseries from Roots. We all watched that as kids. I did anyway. And guess they're doing a remake of it with Forrest Whitaker and some other really terrific actors. Might be something you watch. Might not be something you watch. At any rate. All right, Phil Kerpen's on the line with us, the president of the American Commitment. Excuse me, it's Aubrey Shines on the line. I'm getting confused here. Computer's not working right here this week. Aubrey Shines on the line. Sorry, Aubrey. Welcome back to the program.
Always great being with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Good to have you here. Listen, Aubrey Shines is the founder of Glory to Glory Ministries. And as you know, a lot of folks are pretty upset watching the Beyonce thing. Now, I didn't watch it because I don't generally watch the halftime shows of the Super Bowl and so forth. But, apparently, and maybe you can help me with it, it was a Black Lives Matter, anti-police, Black Panther type display. Fill me in a little bit. Tell me what it was in your estimation.
It was a debacle. That's what it was to start out with, because here you have Beyonce, who's coming in, by the way, escorted by police to get to the stadium, only to turn around and do something that really promoted and amplified the ideology of the Black Panthers, amplified the failed policies of Black Lives Matter. And here she is doing this to kids. And I think the sad part about it, especially in my scenario, we have several hundred kids at a YMCA. We give them hot dogs and et cetera, and let them watch football and play games during halftime. They're looking, of course, and here she is. Now I'm having to explain to little kids. Of course, the older adults already understood. Here you had just totally magnifying this whole concept of the Black Panthers. And even though some would say, well, wait a minute, these are people that really work for civil rights. That's not all they work for, because they were known to kind of shake down their own neighborhoods, also to sell drugs within the neighborhoods. And to see Beyonce personified this failed behavior, it was despicable. And unfortunately, the NFL commissioner and none of the above have touched the subject matter.
Well, let me ask you this, and going deeper beyond all of this, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement has crossed into, I don't know what kind of territory it is, but it's certainly not in the mainstream anymore, I think it's fair to say, for most folks, yourself included, obviously. It's gone too far. Do Black Lives Matter? Of course they do. So do all lives, in my estimation. So do police lives, for that matter. But if you say that, of course, you say that on national TV, the police lives matter, all lives matter. My God, if you're me, you're labeled a racist immediately. If it's you, you're an Uncle Tom. Bam, there it is.
You got it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. Now, are there problems with racial discord in this country? Is there still racism? Sure there is. I've never concerned myself with it. I was born into a post-racial America, if you will. There were no separate lines for white or colored or any of those things. I've never experienced these things, and I wouldn't think much about race, to be honest with you, except that I feel like people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton shove it down my throat every day.
Well, it's just not them. You have a sitting president who has never failed an opportunity to shove it down America's throat. Again, whether it was his Bill Gates beer fest, whatever scenario you want to use. And again, someone asked me on TV the other day, why do you think no one has said anything? I said, let's get this straight. You have Beyonce, who is one of the favorite entertainers that comes to the White House, who Michelle Barack Obama is a supporter of. These are the guys and girls that they hang out with, and these are the people that are influencing people. And when I said this on a TV show not too long ago, I challenged everyone in the viewing audience to go and pull up the lyrics of Beyonce's last song, her number one song that's out. And by the way, this is not just impacting blacks. This is impacting white kids, Hispanic kids, Asian kids. And if you heard the debauchery of the song and understand the influence that it has on little girls everywhere, parents would be sickened by this. And the reason that there's no one saying anything is because, again, she is a favorite of this sitting president and his wife's entertainment section. And as a result of it, it's silence in the White House.
You know, it's incredible. If you ask most people, school kids especially in America, or millennials who, the ones that are voting for Bernie Sanders would drool in the corner of their mouths because they don't know American history or world history for that matter. How many slaves were imported to America, roughly? Do you know?
Yeah, actually I do, and there's some conflicting, but we're talking upwards of 40 million slaves.
Well, 40 million slaves that went out, but less than 400,000 that ever came to the United States.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Less than 400,000. 12 million came to the Western Hemisphere. The rest, by the way, went to the Middle East, which most people don't realize. The rest went to the Middle East, to Iraq and Iran, because our lovely friends, the radical Islamic folks, still believe that slavery is ordained through the Quran. You know that, and I know that.
Of course, and I teach it all the time that this is not some fringe group that this president would want you to believe.
No.
That's a lie.
But less than 400,000 slaves ever came to America. But if you grew up in America today, you'd think we were the only country on earth that ever had slavery. We didn't create it. We inherited it from the British and the French and the Spanish, and we got rid of it 80 years later. We did pretty well to emancipate the slaves. Now, it took another 100 years to convince some folks that it actually happened. But this whole thing that America has victimized me, I mean, at some point, does it not wear thin for everybody? And what good does it do? All this negative. Can't we look at the positive, how we've come together and we have places that we can, you and I having a conversation, for God's sake, for a good example. Can't we find places that are positive and move forward?
Well, we can only if you have sensible, logical, rational people that have the dialogue. But if you have these inept, feckless leaders like Barack Obama, you're never going to hear the end of it because, again, whether it is slavery, or whether it is the Inquisitions, you're going to have those with a false narrative who have a point, and again, their major deluge of information goes through their surrogate friends, which is the media, and that's 91% of all media outlets. So they're going to continue to perpetuate this lie, these lies, and what you're going to find is the discord is going to continue to grow wider because you can't. Now, and again, I always say this, and especially to the race baiters. Here's the reality. You would have never had a Barack Hussein Obama in the Oval Office had it been for racism, because 7 out of 10 whites voted for this clown.
That's right, for this clown. Next time you're here, Aubrey, we want to talk about who the black audience will vote for this time around. Have a great weekend, my friend. Aubrey Shines, founder of Glory to Glory Ministries. You can find him online. It's Free for All Friday.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Welcome back to it. It's a free-for-all Friday. One of the conversations you heard a lot here in the last couple of weeks, certainly during the run-up to the Iowa caucuses, was about ethanol. And all of the money that you and I pour into ethanol subsidies, which is a ton to support corn growers, which is weird, considering all the money they make off from high-fructose corn syrup. I'm not sure they need more of my money, but there it is. And ethanol, and I love farmers, relax. But ethanol is not particularly good for your motor, and it doesn't do anything particularly to save the environment. And yet we keep dumping money into it. Right now, gasoline prices around the capital city, $1.39 is everywhere. Grand Rapids, your average is $1.57. Flint, you're at $1.50. Kalamazoo, $1.52. You get the idea. Gas is cheap, but it might not stay cheap for too long. Phil Kerpen, the president of the American Commitment, here with us. Phil, welcome back to the program.
Hey, great to be with you.
So, all right, give me an idea. You contend that under current law, this ethanol mandate is set to sharply increase, and it'll have devastating consequences financially at the pump for everybody. What are you talking about?
Well, the worst of it has been blocked by waiver for the past 2 years, and this whole thing is ridiculous. You know, the way they wrote this law, and this was a Republican Congress, by the way, that did this. The way they wrote this law, they made up for every year the total volume of ethanol that's mandated to be blended into the U.S. fuel supply, and they specified it not as a percentage, but as a number of millions of gallons. And they wrote all this out in 2007. And they wrote it out for 15 years through 2022, and they had no clue what the size of the total U.S. fuel supply would be now. And they got it very, very wrong because they didn't think the Great Recession was going to happen. They thought we'd have a much bigger economy, much bigger fuel supply. In any event, if we don't have a waiver for 2017, the amount of ethanol that's going to be required to be blended into the U.S. fuel supply cannot be met with 10% ethanol fuel with E10. Not a lot of vehicles can use E15, and so the only way you can really push a lot more ethanol into the U.S. fuel supply and meet a much higher mandate is the small number of people who've got flex fuel vehicles that can use any amount of ethanol. They've got to be incentivized to go to the E85 pump and get 85% ethanol. Now, the Congressional Budget Office says the only way that happens, the only way you can meet that higher mandate level, is if the price of regular gasoline goes up 13 to 26 cents a gallon, the price of diesel goes up 30 to 51 cents a gallon, and the price of E85 comes down about $1 a gallon. And so for everyone who's not driving a flex fuel vehicle and can't buy that E85, this is a pretty big price shock.
So what is the government going to do? Put a tax on there to drive our price up so they can move E85?
Well, it won't be a tax. I mean, it'll be, that's just the way the market will have to price it to comply with the mandate. So, I mean, it's the equivalent of a tax.
So why do we spend all this money? Let me ask you this, Phil. Why? I mean, this is the Chuck Grassley law, apparently. The powerful senator from Iowa, who's, the corn lobbyist, greatest hero. Why do we spend all of this money subsidizing ethanol? It does nothing to help our environment. It does nothing but it doesn't do much at all for the rest of us. It helps out a small group of mega farmers, that grow tons of corn, my understanding. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. The interesting thing is the conventional political wisdom was always, you got to be for this because otherwise you have no chance politically in Iowa, and it's a third rail and all this kind of thing. And that was kind of proven wrong this year. Ted Cruz went in there. And I don't know what you think of him. It doesn't really matter who you support for president or whatever, but I think just for Iowa, the fact that he won was kind of a great thing for ethanol because this guy said, I'm going to get rid of the mandate. I don't believe in any mandates or subsidies or regulations for energy. I think we ought to have a free market and let consumer demand determine what our transportation fuel mix looks like. And
I agree with him on that point.
He got viciously attacked, and he won anyway.
Yeah, I agree with him on that point. Why would we subsidize fuel? We have more energy here on this piece of real estate called America than any other piece of real estate in the world. More energy available to us here in America than any place in the world. Why would we subsidize something to make one certain kind over another?
Yeah, I think that's right, and this is kind of like the amazing thing, right? So the industry goes crazy attacking him. They get the governor to say vote for anyone but him. The governor's son takes a job with the ethanol industry, starts following him around every event, attacking him, and all this kind of stuff. They said if Ted Cruz wins this caucus, the renewable fuel standard, the ethanol mandate is dead. I hope they're right. I'd like to see Congress go ahead and repeal it now because the politics of it are not what we thought they were.
No, and it's going to cost us all a ton of money. And trust me, Congress can find 100 other ways to squander our money. They don't have to squander it all in one place.
Yeah, look, no doubt about that. And the other thing is, look, for the last 2 years, there have been waivers to prevent this big price spike from happening. But, that's like a whole ridiculous, complex process where everyone has to file these comments and beg the EPA to issue a waiver. That shouldn't have to happen every year just to avoid this huge price spike. It's time to get rid of this law. The whole logic behind it way back when was it was supposedly good for the environment and supposedly we were running out of oil, so we had to do it. Like, every reason they gave us for passing this was completely wrong.
Well, yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, we are headed to an ice age, and Jimmy Carter sat there in a sweater vest telling us that gasoline or oil was going to disappear within 10 years. I remember it was like 1976. That didn't happen.
Yeah, he started the Synthetic Fuels Corporation. That's when kind of all of this started. But the global warming part of this is the most hilarious part because they passed this law in 2007, and they're like, we're going to have a huge increase in ethanol, and it's going to help with global warming. Then the very next year, 2008. A big study came out in the scientific journal Nature saying actually ethanol increases global warming. And it's like, okay, but we're not going to get rid of that law from last year because, corn farmers.
Yeah, exactly. Because we need to buy votes. That's the deal. Phil Kerpen, always a pleasure. Thank you for the conversation.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah, Phil Kerpen, president of the American Commitment here on the Steve Gruber Show on a Free for All Friday.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. You're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it's Free for All Friday. Here's something you're not going to hear every day. At least 4 people are injured, 1 person dead. Following a bloody rampage with a machete. It happened in Columbus, Ohio, that is. It all happened in Columbus. At least 4 people were injured in the machete attack in the restaurant. It occurred at the Nazareth Restaurant in Delhi, a Mediterranean joint in Columbus. Police said the unidentified man walked into the restaurant, had an argument with an employee, left, came back a bit later. Witnesses saying they thought that he was beating people up, then people were bleeding and running and screaming. The man fled the scene. Police pursued in a short chase. Officers forced him off the road a few miles away. When the suspect got out of his car, they tried unsuccessfully to use a stun gun. He came at them with a machete and another knife in his other hand. Well, that's when police use their guns. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You've heard that before. No rhyme or reason to who he was going after, said one of the police officers. There's nothing to lead us to believe that it's anything but random. The Columbus Dispatch reporting that the FBI is assisting in the investigation. But is it terrorism? I don't know. We know that we had we've had a couple of suspects, one in Philadelphia, one in New York, came after people with machetes. That was Muslim-based attacks, and maybe this is the same. Went to a Mediterranean restaurant. I don't know. We'll wait to find out what the bottom line is here. But how crazy is that? Guy comes running through with a machete. Again, this is where a concealed carry license comes in very handy. You don't have to put up with that kind of nonsense if you have you could actually even finish your meal if you were so inclined. All right, maybe that's a little cold. But it's true. Don't look at... What do you look at me like that for? Seriously, I mean, if the guy comes in swinging a knife around, you're in the middle of dinner, you turn around, pow, and you go on with your dinner. Am I wrong?
I don't know about going on with my dinner. I think at that point I'd probably lose my appetite.
Oh, come on.
Man.
What if it was a really good meal? All right.
I don't think it matters.
Let the mailbox going to fill up over that one, isn't it? All right, I was just checking, So you wouldn't finish your meal, I might,
Well, considering who would probably be defending you.
Well, yeah, right.
I would definitely not be eating any longer.
Yeah, you'd have questions to answer. I'd finish my meal. You'd be filling out reports. All righty. Here's something that'll help you sleep at night. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov gave a grim warning that failure to resolve the conflict in Syria could result in a new world war. The Americans and our Arab partners must think, well, do they want a permanent war? Lavrov made that comment to a German newspaper. All sides must be compelled to sit at the negotiating table instead of unleashing a new world war, said the Russian foreign minister. He also noted such a war would be long and bloody, especially in the Arab world, where everybody is fighting against everybody, as he put it. So that should help you sleep at night. The Russians discussing, a third world war. Meanwhile, have you seen the pictures out of Aleppo? Good Lord. Formerly one of the crown jewels, as far as cities go in the Middle East. It's debris and dust for the most part. There's mostly just debris, and it's just been pounded by all sides. The High Negotiations Committee have blamed Russia for intentionally imploding the talks by engaging a new bombing campaign, imploding talks to bring this to an end against that key city of Aleppo. There's nothing to negotiate anymore. They said, just go home. The United Nations body acting as the intermediary hopes the talks will resume at the end of February. This is the United Nations, Woodrow Wilson's dream of nations getting together, giving each other a quick hug and a kiss on the cheek, and we'll all go home and nobody will die. The utopian view of the world brought to you by Woodrow Wilson, arguably one of the worst presidents of the 20th century in America, maybe the worst, for a variety of reasons. You can hold that debate amongst yourselves. Get back to me with your conclusions. Of course, he didn't even do the last 2 years of his presidency. His wife, Edith, pretty much ran the country for the last couple of years. It's something else you can look up, because he suffered from a series of illnesses and strokes and other problems. But, we could go back and fix it potentially. We could time travel back and fix it, because apparently scientists have found evidence of gravitational waves predicted by Einstein. And so apparently maybe we could just, get in the DeLorean and go back.
I've been talking about Insta-portals my whole life. I just want to be over there right now. There I go.
You've been talking about Insta-portals.
Yeah.
Well,
if you believe in quantum physics, then you have to believe that.
We never had this conversation. Where are you hiding the hookah pipe at home? Because I haven't seen it. Where are you hiding that thing?
Well, you know.
No, I don't. That's why I'm asking. Yeah, she's apparently been talking to her friends about teleportals and other things her whole life. Okay. See, the things you learn here. Let's see. They've detected gravitational waves at Caltech. Our observation of gravitational waves accomplishes an ambitious goal set out over 5 decades ago to directly detect this elusive phenomenon and better understand the universe and fittingly fulfill Einstein's legacy on the 100th anniversary of his general theory of relativity, which was put out in 1915 when he was 26 years old and a patent clerk. You know that Einstein was nothing more than a patent clerk sitting in an office. You know how he came up with this theory of relativity? Riding the streetcar every day, he would imagine how these things would work. His imagination would do this, and then he went and set about writing it down. A guy that was kicked out of school because he wasn't smart enough, his teachers thought, to hang around. What does that tell you about public education? Hey, that kid's not smart enough. He doesn't do well in standardized tests, and he doesn't fit in with everybody else. He must be dumb. Congress, by the way, here's some more fun for you, shifting gears, as we're traveling back in time, and you're going to your portals or whatever you're doing. Congress is exempt from Obamacare. Do I know why? Do you want to know why Congress is exempt from Obamacare?
Because it sucks.
Well, that's a good reason, but it's not the answer. It's a fun answer, but it's not the answer. All right. Congress is exempt from Obamacare because Congress is listed as a small business. For real. Listed as a small business. And because Obamacare sucks. All right. At least we got that covered. It's Free for All Friday. 888-900-9966. That's it. I'm out of here.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, welcome back to it on a Friday. You know, I had this conversation, I think I mentioned this to you, here recently with a doctor who said, you know, all of your information that goes out there, like on, if you get a prescription or whatever, it's all done electronically now, so that all of these insurance companies, and ultimately, therefore, the government all have access to your medical history and everything that's going on, which I find unsettling to say the least. Because the way they follow now, he said if they find that you're not using the medication or you're not filling your scripts on time or whatever, they will adjust. They will make changes to your prescriptions, the way you're being treated, if it doesn't fit into their pattern. I mean, it's just everybody's looking at what you're doing. You're just being watched all the time, which I don't like at all, I'll be quite honest. And Schieber here, Senior Investigative Analyst for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. Ann, welcome back to the program.
Oh, good morning, Steve. Nice to be here.
I mean, is privacy just some quaint notion from the past?
You know, it's really interesting because we now have phenomenal technology that allows all kinds of information to be shared about us. And government is a huge operation and has the ability to get all kinds of information about us and put it online and for the world to see.
You know what bothers me about this, though? That you have these HIPAA laws, for example, that were put in place to make sure this sort of thing doesn't happen. But the government, in its infinite wisdom, gave us HIPAA laws to protect ourselves, apparently, and then, just sidesteps the HIPAA laws because it's not convenient for the government to look at you and I and everybody else. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, and I think families especially find HIPAA laws very difficult to deal with, especially when they have, I know, for example, for me, I have college-age daughters, and it's not just in medical areas of medicine, but it's in college and finances. My daughters have to give me permission and give the college permission for me to find out what their grades are or if there's something wrong. Of course, they're busy doing other things besides filling out forms, giving me permission to be nosy because I'm paying the bills, but you know what I mean.
So like, one of the examples you cite on an article you wrote here recently was a gentleman that said he put no trespassing signs on his property, and he called the township and said, "I don't want the tax assessor, and I don't want people walking around my property." And yet later, he finds on the township website pictures of his backyard. Do we not have the ability to say, "No, I don't want a government agent on my private property"? I think we have that right, don't we?
You know, and you're right. And this has gone through the courts, and it's very difficult. The courts have unfortunately sided with some of these officers, saying that they do have a job to get on your property, but you know they should respect the fact that if you don't want them on your property, they should respect that. But it's difficult. You could put a no trespassing sign on there. They are supposed to watch that, but if you're not home and they knock on your door, they will take the liberty to walk around your house and perhaps take pictures. Now, hopefully, under some lawmakers have become aware of this and are trying to make the practice a little more standard.
Well, and here's the thing. You've got all these, drones flying around and satellites and all these other things taking images. And one of the things that, would concern me is that, and I get fascinated. I go to Google Earth and so forth, and I see, a picture from 5 years ago, and, oh, there's a car. Oh, yeah, that's the car we had then. I found actually a website here recently showing me pictures of the house I grew up in back in 1968 and 1986. I found that fascinating, and what car was in the driveway. And, oh, yeah,
it's cool.
But if they're showing people today the car that's in the driveway or the boat that's in the backyard or the quad or the lawnmower or the motorcycle or things that can be stolen, frankly, there's one concern. Or people that are thieves can look at that and say, well, here's how we can access the house, because if this car is not in the driveway, we know they're not home. I mean, there's real public safety issues there, not to mention, just because you work for the government, that doesn't mean you have permission to snoop through my stuff. It's none of your damn business what I have in my backyard, my opinion.
Right. And plus, you can get photographs today that allow you to zoom them. The resolution is so fine that you can actually look in somebody's house from a photograph.
That's right. 4K cameras. 4K cameras allow you to take a wide picture and zoom right in with no loss of clarity or, perfection.
Yeah. So, when it comes to Michigan, the question is, why do we need to pay people to walk on your property? Why are we calculating property taxes that way? It's based on square footage and what they call comps, what houses are selling for in a given market. Houses turn over much more frequently than they did decades ago. And so we have real data about the value of houses that tax assessors can use to determine. They do use that now, but
they don't need to come on property. They don't need to come on my property. Here's another thing that I've faced.
What they need to see is through a satellite image, and they do that. The services are available to government, and some local governments are using them already.
Yeah, and here's something else that I've dealt with. Ivy and I have on our property, we have a 40-acre piece, and there's a power line that goes across part of the property. Well, the power companies come in to do maintenance here and there, but they'll come in when the ground is soft and these big heavy trucks tear the daylights out of our ground, leave huge ruts and a huge mess, and knock stuff down and leave, and they don't care. And they have access. Well, they have the right, that's eminent domain. They have the right to come and work on the power line. Yeah, well, that's fine, but you cost me 2 days of work fixing ruts because you take these big dually-wheeled trucks and plant them down to the axle, and then you have your other truck yank it out. I've had this happen. And I've also walked up on people, during hunting season when I've got a gun in my hand because I'm hunting, no other threat, and say, what are you doing on my property? And they look at you like, wild-eyed, dude, it's deer season. Why are you on my property? Well, we had to do this and that. Can you not give a guy the heads up? Anyhow, I'll give you the last word here, Ann.
Well, it's funny. You talk about those concerns in rural areas. Right now I'm working on issues involving cities where there's low-density housing, and some cities have gotten really taken the liberty to walk on people's property looking for code violations and so forth, and become a real nuisance.
Yeah, really. We need to talk more about this in the next couple of weeks here, Ann, because it is a real prominent concern for all of us. It's Friday on the Steve Gruber Show.
delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
You're pushing on me. You're pushing too hard at what you want me to be. You're pushing too hard about the things you say. You're pushing too hard every night and day. You're pushing too hard on me.
All right, welcome back to it. The Republican race now down to 5 viable candidates, really. And less than that, some. You've got Trump, Cruz, Rubio, Kasich, and Cruz. Ben Carson's also still in the race, but I'm not sure his candidacy is viable anymore. On the Democratic side, you know, a real slugfest last night, trying to figure out who can give away more, who can raise taxes higher and give away more free stuff faster, Hillary Clinton or Bernie the Marxist. Well, you know, quite a contest. You know why Bernie wins on the Democratic side, even though his politics are, you know, for a century have been proven to be abject failures and have cost millions of people their lives. And I had somebody write me yesterday, are you saying that Bernie Sanders is going to kill people? You're insane. No, what I'm saying is that democratic socialism over 100 years has a pretty clear outcome, and it's always about the same, and people end up paying with their lives. Is Bernie going to do it? No. Bernie's life is, you know, he's old. He's not going to be around long enough. I'm just saying they're dangerous policies. Ruth Guerra here at RNC spokeswoman to talk more about what's going on in the race as we head to South Carolina. Welcome to the program, Ruth.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be with you.
And how are things today?
Well, things are good, and I just wanted to follow up on your statement about our candidates. Some of them, I think all of them are viable candidates and more well qualified than what you're going to get from one candidate who's being investigated by the FBI, and another candidate who's a socialist. So I think on our side, the diversity, the qualifications are there, and the Democrats have a real problem on their hands if you take a close look.
Right. I my point is that, we'll agree to disagree. I don't think that Ben Carson is viable. I think Jeb Bush's chances of becoming president oscillate somewhere near nil. Although I did, for the first time, this is pretty impressive. For the first time, because I've been talking about this for a period of time, Ruth. I talked to a lot of people, and I talked to people that are for Trump and people that are for Cruz, and I got some Rubio supporters and some Ben Carson supporters. I found a living, breathing Jeb Bush supporter last night for the first time, I swear, for the first time since this all started, because I could never understand how Jeb Bush was polling with 12 or 15 or 20%, in the early voting or early polling before the started. But I found a living, breathing Jeb Bush supporter. So you might be right. He might be viable with, one voter. I'm sorry. Jeb Bush stands no chance of winning anything, Ruth. I hate to break the news to you.
Yeah, well, I think all of our candidates, you've seen the polls and you've seen the results, some in Iowa, some in New Hampshire, and I think each and every candidate is going to continue to try hard to win votes, and I think that's what we like to see. One of the other things that we like to see on our side is the enthusiasm and the record turnout that we saw in Iowa and New Hampshire. We expect it again in South Carolina this Tuesday. So it's an exciting time. And if you take a look at the Democrats, with Hillary Clinton running since 2008, basically, and coming out with a razor-thin margin in Iowa, and a huge defeat in New Hampshire after having it won in 2008. That was the state that gave Bill Clinton in 92 the nickname the comeback kid, and yet she goes and she loses it, and her only excuse is because Bernie Sanders lives next door.
Well, and we've been through all this before. Last time around 8 years ago, it was that Barack Obama is a once-in-a-generation type candidate. They can't say that about Bernie because Bernie's been around as a politician, a lifelong politician since the earth cooled. He was the mayor of Burlington, and then he was a congressman, and then he's been a senator for a long time. Bernie Sanders is 74 years old. He's a devout socialist. He thinks that General Motors ought to be owned by the government. That's what socialism is, despite what they try to smokescreen you with. And she's losing to him. Right. So again, back to the conversation with the gentleman I had last night. He's a total anti-Donald Trump guy, and I meet a lot of folks like that. I'm sure you do. Totally anti-Donald Trump. And says, well, Trump can't win. He couldn't beat Hillary Clinton. Really? Hillary Clinton can't beat Bernie Sanders. So I take exception to that. If Hillary Clinton can't stomp Bernie Sanders, which basically 7 months ago, Just like he said on the debate last night, 7 or 8 months ago, he was unknown. From a small state, he had no name recognition. He basically, and may have won in Iowa, he clubs her by 22 points in New Hampshire. Don't tell me that Donald Trump can't beat Hillary Clinton. It looks like just about anybody can beat Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I think any single Republican candidate right now can beat Hillary Clinton. And then let's take a look at what's going to happen in South Carolina and Nevada. Right, you're going to have her campaign right now is focused on lowering expectations in those two states, calling them first focusing, for example, in Nevada, on their Latino engagement, on their Latino outreach. Now that they're saying that it's 80% white voters and that it's not diverse. Saying that, it's going to be easier for Bernie there to win because it's a caucus and it's not diverse, and she does better with Latino voters and African-American voters.
That's interesting, and I have to jump in there.
Does not provide that.
Now, why is this? And we're on the line with Ruth Guerra, an RNC spokeswoman. Of course, she's a homer for the Republicans, and that's fine. But here's my question. We get all of this conversation about, Hillary being the first woman to be elected, blah, blah. Wasn't Ted Cruz the first Hispanic to win a major caucus or primary ever? Wasn't Ted Cruz the first? He's of Cuban descent, is he not? Is he not a Hispanic man? And therefore, wasn't it some sort of a historic event that Ted Cruz won in Iowa? But
Sure, it was historic. And if you take a look at other factors from that night, it was 2 of the top 3 Iowa winners were Hispanic, and 3 of the top 4 were either Hispanic or African American.
That's right, because Ben Carson was there. That's right. Ben Carson, the guy who rose up out of poverty to become one of the most acclaimed, if not the most acclaimed, pediatric neurosurgeon in the world. You know why? Because he went to school. Because his mother said, "You get to school and don't you come home until your grades are right." Isn't that what she said?
Absolutely.
Get your tail to school. That's what I said.
It was a good night for us, and I don't think that you can compare that to what the Democrats like to say, that they're the party of diversity, but then look at what they have on stage. Again, it's a socialist, and another one is being investigated by the FBI. So I don't think that is something necessarily that the Democrats want, but, that's what they're going to get.
Yeah, the average Democrat candidate for president is a 71-and-a-half-year-old white person, Lily white person. There's a lot of diversity. Let me ask you this. Who's going to be the nominee for the Republicans? Come on, Ruth.
Yeah. Well, if I had a crystal ball and I could tell you that, then I would be making, hopefully, a lot of money.
Well, see, that's the American dream.
I certainly do not. However, I am confident that the RNC will be prepared for that nominee. Will give them the the most efficient infrastructure for their ground game, and that will support them 110%, and that nominee will beat Hillary Clinton.
See, Ruth, I'm confused, though, about something here. I'm confused. I just spoke to Ivy, the executive producer of the program, and she said, we booked you specifically because you had a crystal ball. See, so now I am confused because now I'm being told you don't have a crystal ball, so I don't understand what to believe.
Oh, I'm sorry for the misinformation.
That's fine.
I wish I could. I wish I could tell you that if I had a crystal ball.
Note to self, Ruth has no crystal ball. Scratch that off the list. All right. Ruth, I greatly appreciate it. You're a good sport. All eyes are on South Carolina going forward. You have a great weekend.
Thank you, Steve. Have a good weekend.
All right, there you have it. Ruth Guerra, everybody, Republican National Committee spokeswoman, and she's kind of fun. She doesn't sound like she's been around at this very long, but she's fun. Free for All Friday. We'll take another break from reality with Ron Van Timmeren right after this.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
All right, so here it is. Here it is. Tomorrow morning, I just looked at the forecast for much of Michigan. It's going to be sub-zero tomorrow. By far the coldest weather of the year so far. So if you're one of those people that looks outside with utter fear of traveling and going anywhere, or you just want to stay inside, I've got good news. I've got good news, and I've got a plan for you. It's called going to the movies. You know, where it's warm, they've got hot buttered popcorn and big comfortable seats, and people like Ron Van Timmeren to cheer you on. You see how that works? Ron, welcome to the program.
I love it. Steve, I want to can that.
Yeah. Yeah, hot buttered popcorn, a comfy seat. Hide from winter, my friends, and take in some hot new movie. There you go. It's the best.
That is perfect, and I have a fine selection here, and I don't know where to start with you, Steve. Do you want to see Deadpool? You want to talk about where to invade next? What do you want to start with?
Where to invade next, I will never watch. That's just me. I don't, I'm not a Michael Moore guy, as you can go figure. But Deadpool, explain to me what this is and what it's all about.
Well, it's a Marvel character. I mean, he's been on the screen before. He's kind of loosely associated with the X-Men. As a matter of fact, there's a couple X-Men characters and a lot of references to that in this movie. But this is Marvel Comics going to the next level, if you will. I mean, very R-rated. They've never done that before. And irreverent, funny. I mean, it's not a straightforward action picture, but there's lots of action in it.
Yeah, my understanding.
It's rapid-fire jokes.
Yeah, he's a different kind of superhero, if you will. He's not all like, pardon me, ma'am, I'm here to save the world. He's not like that. He's more like, whatever, we'll do this and that, and then he makes some wiseacre comments, and then he goes on and, he's, well, what my father would call a smartass, frankly.
Yeah, well, he certainly is, and there's a lot of smart comedy in this movie, too. As a matter of fact, it comes too fast. I mean, you're trying to process the last joke, and it's on to the next one. So it's really wildly entertaining, and again, very R-rated for strong violence and language, sexual content, graphic nudity, something Marvel Comics has never done before. But you know what? There's a love story in it, too. Ryan Reynolds has a girlfriend, and after he gets dipped in the secret sauce, he takes off because you got to put the costume on, you got to put the mask on, and he doesn't think his girlfriend will like him. So a lot going on in Deadpool. Critics are loving it. I loved it. I'm recommending it.
Okay, I had two takeaways from that sentence, both of which you're going to blush at, and Ivy here is going to give me the look. Graphic nudity and secret sauce, and I'm concerned because this is supposed to be a Marvel comic. I'm just confused and concerned, but I'm probably going to go see it.
You have been warned, everybody. But, over 80% fresh on RottenTomatoes.com from the critics, so they're loving it. I think if you're ready for it, you'll not be disappointed.
All right, so what else is out there? I mean, you can tell me about where to invade next. It's not my cup of tea, but it might be for some folks out there.
You know what? I find his sense of humor funny. To me, this is a more mellow Michael Moore. I mean, what he's doing is he's going over to Europe to find solutions to some of America's problems. And for example, he goes to Italy where they mandate 30 to 35 days of paid vacation each year for their workers and 15 days of paid vacation for honeymooners. And he draws the conclusion: more sex and more vacation increases productivity. What's wrong with that?
Well, okay, fair enough. That's fair enough. See, that's two movies in a row, though.
It was kind of silly funny. He couldn't sustain it for the whole 2 hours, but it was interesting, some of the things he discovered in Europe. How to Be Single, Steve, that's the chick flick of the weekend. Rebel Wilson, Dakota Johnson, Leslie Mann. That is getting pretty good reviews. If you like movies like Sex and the City or Sisters, then this is going to be right up your alley. And then Zoolander 2 with Ben Stiller, Will Ferrell, Owen Wilson. Again, if you got it with Zoolander 1, you'll enjoy Zoolander 2. Reviews not real good for this one, though.
Yeah, I didn't see the first one, so I guess I'm out of the loop on that one. And How to Be Single must have been a quick hitter because you didn't stick with that one very long. Although is this Dakota Johnson? Is this her first big film since 50 Shades?
Yeah, you're right. It was last Valentine's weekend when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and so she's turning into the Valentine's Day girl here. But Single's getting some pretty good reviews too. Again, R-rated for language and sexual content, so you have to be prepared, like it were for Sisters or Trainwreck.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, and then I noticed here on your rundown. I stepped into the time machine, which apparently they proved I can do now. Thank you to Einstein. But Pretty in Pink here, 30 years ago now. Okay, I'm sitting here going, am I that old?
we all get old, Steve, but we can remember Valentine's past, okay? And this is, one of those classic old love stories, teen love stories, really. John Hughes, one of my favorite directors. Pretty in Pink Sunday special shows at all the Celebration Cinema locations, just 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock, if you're looking for a Valentine's date.
There it is. And there it is. All right, Ron, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
See you at the movies.
There you go. Ron Van Timmeren, everybody. Hey, you know what? Valentine's, Ivy's here in the studio. You can bring that mic up. I'm sorry, is this a bad time for you? Well, I saw yours. I didn't realize you were having something to eat over there. But Valentine's, Ivy and I don't spend much time celebrating Valentine's. Fair enough, right?
No.
We don't, because we celebrate Lincoln's birthday, which is today. Abraham Lincoln born on this day. It's also our anniversary, so happy anniversary, honey.
Thank you. Happy anniversary to you as well.
See, so there you go. So we don't spend, we basically spend the whole time celebrating Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Every day is Valentine's Day for us.
Well, that's pretty true, too. But for the next couple of days. So there you go. Valentine's Day for everybody. How to be single. Pretty in Pink, whatever's out there. And don't forget Wheat Jewelers. If you're looking for something special for Valentine's Day, go to wheatjewelers.com. Great Spartan jewelry available there, plus all sorts of things that sparkle and twinkle and make girls giggle. And that's really important, right? I mean, that is important. Absolutely. It is Free for All Friday. We'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it. Friday, Free for All Friday. And I'll be honest with you, we're taking kind of a detour today. We're taking it easy on you. It's been a big week. Spent a lot of time talking about politics, of course, and what's going on with the problems of the water in Flint and so on and so forth. Of course, the big interview with the governor yesterday. And, time to just take a step back, take a breath, relax, talk about some good things. Spring not too far away. If that little rat is to be trusted in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, Phil says that spring's coming early. How nice for us, which means the home and garden shows are coming, the builder shows are coming, a chance to, get out there and do some things in the yard and maybe dream just a little bit bigger. Maybe you want to build something this year. And my good friend Wayne Visbeen is here from Visbeen Architects. It has offices on the west side of Michigan and elsewhere. Wayne, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Steve. How are you today?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
Fantastic.
So you have offices where? I didn't want to be wrong about what I said there, but you have offices in several different places. Where all are you now?
We do. I mean, our primary office is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We have a satellite office in Chicago, and then down in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Beaufort?
Yeah.
Beaufort.
Down by Palmetto Bluff, a neighborhood we've done quite a few homes. And then we have a northern Michigan office as well. Yeah. So just mostly places that I can get together with our clients and draw and design and put some new homes together.
And have fun. And you sound so serious today, Wayne.
Well, it's early, and, you get up so early on that side of the state. Some of us near beauty sleep.
Yeah, you sound so serious there. So, all right. We'll get to some of the things you're drawing, and I know that you've done some things in front of the camera and so forth as well. We'll talk about that in a second. But as we head into it, it is that time of the year when all the home and garden shows are coming up, and people are thinking about, okay, let's get the house open for the lake. And people are thinking about, hey, maybe I need a new house or a new cottage or a new something. And that's what you do. You specialize in drawing people's dreams. But what's hot this year? I mean, I see a lot of TV shows that focus on, living small or building the dream, deck or something. What's hot in building this year?
Sure.
What's kind of cool?
Well, I think some of the things that we're seeing continue to be major trends are going to be outdoor living. So if you're renovating your existing home, if you've got a little bit of money to spend and you want to have some fun, people are spending money on how they're going to entertain outdoors. And, that's a pretty common theme. And even here in Michigan, where we don't see the outdoors until until March or April or May, we're designing outdoor kitchens, outdoor fireplaces, pizza ovens, fireplaces, fire pits, and people are putting a lot of energy into that living space.
So you talk about...
Go ahead.
You're just talking about when it's not just the lake, though. You spend a lot of time people talking about going to the lake and so forth, but you can make dynamite spaces in people's backyard. You talk about the fire pits, a pizza oven. Really, people put pizza ovens outside?
They do, yeah. And there's a lot of different varieties. You can go all out and build the masonry pizza oven. There's portable pizza ovens. There's little aluminum pizza ovens. So if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find a source that'll let you have pizza oven in your backyard and make a party out of pizza.
And that's pretty cool. And so people can build pretty much, I guess, with people you deal with. If you can dream it, Wayne Visbeen can draw it, has kind of been my impression. I mean, if they can imagine that they want to have a space outside to entertain 5 people, fine, or 500 people, you can do anything.
Yeah, you really don't need a big yard to make it happen. So I think that this is the one place that's affordable to put a little bit of money in. And when you put hardscape in your backyard, there's less maintenance of lawn and garden. So there's a win-win in my opinion.
Not to mention cleanup is a breeze,
Sure.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. One of the other things that I see a lot of people talk about, of course, and I think you probably incorporate into a lot of you must, which is energy efficiency, green living. How do you put in a solar panel or skylights or something so that people save energy and bring some of that inside, even when it's 0 degrees out.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities to do that, and with the outdoor living, you think, well, why would somebody put a door wall in or an opening from their interior to that outdoor living space? But in fact, they are. Some of the things you can do to control that, screens actually can hold some heat in. And so there's opportunities to do that. As far as green living, we're doing a lot. We're spending a lot of energy trying to protect energy. And so there's a lot to do with insulation. There's different opportunities. There's different heating systems. And so we certainly get into that. It's a trend that's not as much fun as outdoor living or some of the other design trends that we're doing, but it's certainly a functional thing.
Okay, so that brings me to here's the question. I mean, people are going to be sitting there, listening, going, well, I can design something outside. I can put a bench out there, and I can go buy a fire pit ring from some, box store or whatever, and I'm good to go. Why would somebody hire an architect to design this outside living space?
Well, you're never going to innovate, I don't think, like a professional. And I think innovation is going to be the key. How does that room really going to resonate with how you live, how you entertain? What's a creative solution that you might not have thought of? And are there ways of getting more for your money? So, what I try to do in design is literally use every opportunity to create a new avenue, a new spot, a new place, maybe a space that can be used for multi-purposes, giving you more for your money. And that's the same thing we do on the interior. We're trying to design spaces out of homes. People are getting rid of living rooms. They're getting rid of dining rooms. They're innovating in their kitchen so that the kitchen can go from a nice place for 2 people to dine to 20. And how do you do that without it looking like it's ready for 20 all the time? Those are the tricks that we try to employ and really give people more for their money so that when they spend money on design, they end up getting more art, more home, more creativity, and certainly a better looking space.
Well, and you and I had this conversation once. If you don't waste 100 square feet in a house and it's costing you $250 a square foot to build the house, well, gee, you just saved yourself thousands.
25,000, Steve. I mean, I know you're a mathematician.
Exactly, it's $25,000, and you save it right there, and that pays for usually that pays for the cost of having a professional. That's why you have somebody like yourself come in. That's why I asked you the question.
And really, you're pretty good. You should do this for a living.
Yeah, I'm not as good as you are. You've won a bunch of awards here recently. Tell me about that, and then tell folks how they can find you if they want to draw something great from a dream house to a cabin to outside living.
Sure.
Tell me.
So our website is visbeen.com, V as in Victor, I-S, B as in boy, E-E-N.com. And if you watch the videos on our website, that'll explain our process, which is incredibly unique in the architecture world. It's a live design process. And I know you've seen it, so you can attest to it.
I can attest to it. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I've known Wayne for a few years now. The first time I met him, he would just start talking to you, and his pen is moving about as fast as his mouth, and he's talking, having a conversation, gesticulating, and all of a sudden you look down and here's this beautiful home or this beautiful room or this beautiful outdoor living space. It is an incredible process, and you are a true Michigan success story, which is why I like having you on the program here, because you continue to do better and better all the time, Wayne. And I wish I had more time, my friend, but there it is, Visbeen.com, Wayne Visbeen. Go to the website and just enjoy it. It's a lot of good fun. Wayne, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
All right, Wayne Visbeen, everybody. Just he really is a marvel to watch at work. He's a truly gifted individual. It is Free for All Friday on the program. We'll be right back.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
He's trending on social media. He's wildly popular out there in the Twitterverse and elsewhere. He's a good friend of the program. You know him best as State Senator Rick Jones, who's become an internet phenomenon over the last few days. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Good morning.
You are a popular fella.
Yes, I know. I'm quite impressed that people will believe anything they read on the internet or Facebook.
Yeah, unfortunately, the topic is a little, off color, but somehow, and I want you to explain this to people, because I've seen this on Facebook. I've seen this everywhere. Michigan Republicans, instead of helping Flint kids, are focusing on sodomy laws and outlawing anal sex and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, come on, really? I mean, I know it's not true, but somehow you got tied to this deal. Please explain.
Well, 4 years ago, a horrible thing happened. Somebody threw acid on a husky, torturous death. The husky was named Logan. So Michigan citizens gathered, and they said, we've got to toughen up the law. This happened 4 years ago. And so what we've got is now if you're a nonprofit animal shelter, you can check and see if somebody has a record for torturing or harming animals and not adopt out another victim. Also included in this was one of the bills was mine, and said you may, if you are convicted of abusing an animal, torturing an animal, or having sex with an animal, you may not possess one for 5 years. Sounds reasonable. You hope they get some mental health treatment, don't return to their practices. So a kid, a young man down in Texas who writes a blog, in my opinion, it's not a legitimate news source, but he reads this Michigan bill, and he doesn't know how to read a Michigan bill. The only changes are the dark, bold, black letters. So he reads old law, has nothing to do with my bill, and he thinks in Michigan we're now going to give people 15 years in prison for sodomy between consenting adults. And it absolutely is not true. That is an old, I believe, an 1859 law that's been ruled unconstitutional back in 2003.
So let me get this straight. This language was somehow attached to your bill because it was old law pertaining to abuse of people or animals or whatever, and this guy in Texas, having no clue what he's doing, attributes it, the sodomy laws to you.
Yes, he doesn't know how to read a bill, and it's not really attached to my bill, but he's reading old law and he's assuming that it has something to do with my bill.
And then, because he puts it out there, it gets picked up all over the Twitter world, the Facebook world, the world of social media, and all of a sudden, you and Michigan Republicans, more specifically, are on the receiving end of all sorts of hateful, abusive, comments and columns and all sorts of stuff.
Yes, and what's really funny is every Senate Democrat voted for it. So, I mean, it's just hilarious. And so now they're dancing around saying, oh, we didn't mean to vote for it.
It's like, come on, people. Let's just get...
So it got such a big audience. It was spread around so much that not only did some very responsible media sources come out and say this is totally false, an online truth check center called Snopes.com even came out nationally and said this is totally false.
So you've made it all the way to Snopes' infamy. That's pretty impressive, Senator, I must say. I've never made it to Snopes. Of course, everything I say is always true. See, so we don't have to go there. All right, so I guess a couple of serious questions for you while we've got you on the line. I'm glad that's cleared up, by the way. I'm glad that you can put that behind you. No pun intended. I'd like to... yeah, you liked that, didn't you? I'd like to just talk quickly about the governor's budget. What do you make of it? There is a ton of money. He was here on the program yesterday. I mean, a ton of money, $250 million close for what's going on in Flint. What do you think of it all?
Well, we're going to very carefully vet it, study it, and I can assure you that we're not going to spend any tax dollars unless needed. But that being said, I do support the governor in fixing Flint. We've already voted some money out of that for Flint, and there will have to be some more.
So when you say there's going to have to be some, here's where I guess, and the governor explained this some, and maybe you can help the listeners as well. The problem that happened in Flint may have damaged the pipes, some of them permanently, but I read somewhere that a study showed that it would cost about $60 million to replace all of the pipes in Flint and fix the problem, and yet we're talking about numbers that are multiples of that, close to $250 million that the state has talked about, the governor's talked about. If you talk to Stabenow and Peters, they're talking $600 million, and Candace Miller, she wants to give Flint $1 billion. I'm like, I'm sorry, whose side are you on? I mean, I understand there's a problem, but you start giving $1 billion to Flint, then Kalamazoo is going to want theirs, and Holland and Saginaw and Owasso and all the other places that have problems are going to want, copious amounts of money too. So how do you explain that?
Well, in the situation with Candace, I mean, it's been rumored for quite some time that she may consider a run for governor. I suspect that had a reason behind her news release on that. But beyond that, people are throwing all kinds of figures around, and we will spend what is needed. If there are better diets for children that have been affected that can help alleviate problems, and I'm told that there is, we want to make sure they all get fed appropriately, and we're going to make sure that they're checked medically with nurses and the schools and doctors. And we're going to make sure that everything is done right. And this has been a terrible tragedy, and I would urge everybody to stop pointing fingers at the governor. The Attorney General, Bill Schuette, has brought in an independent investigator, an independent prosecutor, and I can tell you, this investigator is tougher than nails. He's a former FBI guy, and I don't care who's responsible, they're going to get nailed. And that's exactly what I would ask everybody to wait for. Wait until this independent investigation is complete, and let's see who really is responsible.
I guess we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on that and how the budget talks go. Senator, I appreciate your time, my friend.
Okay, have a great day.
Have a great weekend. Rick Jones, of course, here on the program. We'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
You look too good to me. Your beady eyes that can cut me in two, and I just can't let you be. But it's a free for all, and a heart I said, you can bet your life. Stakes are high, and so am I. It's in the air tonight.
All right, Free for All Friday. Welcome to it. Quickly to the phone lines. We got Dave waiting on the line in Grand Rapids today. Dave, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Thank you for taking my call. I just want to encourage your listeners to do something that I've done the last couple of weeks. I've called the Republican Party offices and local counties here in Grand Rapids and Ottawa County as well, and then the state office, and just express to them why, like in New Hampshire, 50% of the Republicans are angry at the Republican Party. It's because they lie to us and they don't tell us the truth. And when you call the office, the last time I called, it was about the Paul Ryan budget debacle that nothing got done again. They lied to us. They were going to defund Planned Parenthood. They did not do that. And everything they do, they say they don't do. And that's exactly why they got their shorts in a bunch right now, and they should have, because somebody like Donald Trump, and I don't even know if I like Donald Trump, but I'm supporting him because the Republican Party is just not doing their job. And unfortunately for them, I remember George Hubert Walker Bush saying, his famous words, read my lips, no more taxes, and then he promptly get more taxes.
Yeah, he made a deal with the Democrats who later beat him over the head with it. And I get your anger, Dave, and I appreciate where you're coming from. And what you say is true. People are disheartened with the Republicans and disappointed and frankly angry. And that's a fact. Let's skip down the line here. John on the line in Portage now. John, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Steve. I'm returning to an old topic. It appears from a conversation you just had a few minutes ago with the representative that they're talking about allocating lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money for Flint, but they still haven't made a determination as to where fault lay. Now, if that's correct, that determination is yet to be made, have we adopted Flint? Is that now our new child, and they don't have to be responsible for their own political suicide?
Well, there's some truth to that potentially. Here's the problem that we have here is that okay, what would you do? Flint is broke. Flint has destroyed themselves financially for decades. They don't have a nickel to their name. They're bankrupt, and so are several other cities around the country and around the state, which is true. And now you find these children have elevated lead levels. What do? You can't just leave the kids out on their own. So what do you do?
Well, I don't disagree that the children that have been affected by stupid politics, things have to happen. But the question gets to be is, why are we redoing or considering redoing all the pipes in Flint? Why are we restructuring a city that's destroyed itself? Why are we not forcing them to amalgamate with some other unit of government that has showed great responsibility so that maybe they can all get together and straighten out all their problems? The problem gets to be is the loudest voices who don't make any sense are talking about $1 billion, okay, or even $100 million, and it's coming out of my pocket, and so that means I'm getting too.
And John, I don't disagree with you. It's part of the same thing that that our previous caller Dave was saying is that you've got all this money being spent. You've got all these Republicans saying they're going to do X, Y, and Z. They don't do it, and then you get these other folks spending all this money. I mean, Candace Miller pledging to spend $1 billion if she could on Flint. Make no mistake what Candace Miller's play is right there, just so everybody's clear on this. Everybody listen and pay attention. Candace Miller wants to be governor of the state of Michigan. She wants to run as a Republican and be governor, and she thinks the way to get there apparently is to buy off Flint for $1 billion, which is obscene. Because then when you look around at places like, look at the list of cities. Muskegon, Kalamazoo, Saginaw, Owasso, Ionia, Adrian, Holland, all of these places have problems with lead levels in their children. Now, where does it come from? It comes from environmental issues. Could it be paint? Sure. Could it be something that's in solvents or whatever that could be in the ground? Sure. It could come from it. Could it be water related? Possibly. The point that you make is a great point, John, and we don't know where it originates. But we have a lot of other cities that have a much more serious lead issue than Flint. And if you start just opening up the checkbook, well, what happens to the next city and the next and the next? You just close the checkbook on them. Who gets the money and who doesn't?
Well, you're right, Steve. That's the whole point. I'm over here in Portage, and we haven't signed up yet to adopt Kalamazoo because Kalamazoo, which is a great city, okay, has been irresponsible financially for the last 25 years. And so they have crises and problems that we don't have in Portage.
Well, there's been a lot of people that have been irresponsible with our money, including Republicans, I might add. We're $19 trillion in debt, give or take. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, you talk about the Paul Ryan budget and the funding of different things like Dave was talking about a minute ago. It's true. We've been completely irresponsible with money at all levels, and I appreciate you calling in, John. The hotline number, by the way, if you'd like to join the conversation, is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. So here's the problem you have now. You know that there are children that have elevated levels of lead in their blood. You have to take care of them. You have a moral obligation to take care of them. But at what cost? And how far does that moral obligation go is a fair question. Do you replace all of the pipes in the entire city? Do you replace all the do you? Do you take people out of homes where the pipes and so forth are too damaged that they can't be dealt with? Do you just replace it and move on? Yeah, you can't turn your back from a moral point of view. Those children didn't do anything wrong. And you know, there's culpability here, and who pays for it? I don't know. Probably you and I. Which should make you really angry and make damn sure that the next time you vote for people that make sure that they are fiscally responsible leading up to any potential crisis. There's going to be a rainy day, all right? That's why you have rainy day funds. That's why you don't squander your money on deals with, you know, people that are, I'll use unions as an example, but relax, union folks. Unions squeezing politicians for sweetheart deals so that their union membership will turn out and vote for that politician the next time around. Deals that cannot be afforded down the road. Deals that are, you know, financially irresponsible and that we're on the hook for. You think that the student loan crisis and student loan debt is a big problem? You go look at the retirement plans we have for some of these unions and municipalities and teachers and so forth around this country. People that work until they're 48 or 49, maybe 50, and then retire. And they're on full pensions with full medical for years and years and years. We can't afford these things, but politicians, and you can figure out which side most often, makes deals with unions and so forth, public sector unions. It's just one example of the problems of how money has been squandered to the point that we can't afford to pay the bills. Because rainy days are going to come. You can't leave the kids in Flint out in the cold. You cannot. It'd be morally reprehensible, and anybody that would suggest such should turn the radio to a different station. It's Free for All Friday, and I'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show, American Values with Midwestern Common Sense.
All right, that hotline number is 888-900-9966. Quickly to the hotline. Chris on the line checking in today. Chris, welcome to the program.
Steve, I'm just calling to tell you how I feel about this stuff. You know, I'm your age, been working in this country all my life. I've been a pipe fitter in the state of Michigan for 30-some-odd years. Our leadership has destroyed our country. They pulled the feet out from underneath, the rug out from underneath us and given our country away to foreign entities. If there was some place I could go, somebody that was speaking for me and defending me, I would be there. I would take arms up against this tyrannical government that we have right now. I thank God that my dad, who was a Vietnam vet, is not alive to see what's happened to this country today. It makes me cry. Thank you, sir.
Chris, hold on. Can I ask you a quick question?
Certainly.
Are you a Trump supporter? Because you sound like it, which is fine.
Trump, Cruz, whoever's going to win it, I'm going to go with them. But I don't believe nothing anybody tells me anymore. I don't believe any of these people. It's been a total failure for the American people. They've given our country away.
All right. Fair enough. Chris, greatly appreciate you calling in. There you have it, the hotline, 888-900-9966. Our next guest, Paul Winfree, the director of the Thomas Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies at the Heritage Foundation. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me this morning.
That kind of anger you heard from the caller right there is pretty common these days. People feel like they're getting, well, frankly, screwed by higher taxes, lower wages, people unemployed. I mean, and this nonsense about the unemployment rate's 4.9% that Obama would have you believe when we know that 95 million Americans aren't working. And then, as if it's like a send-off, a gesture, and you can figure out the gesture, he puts forth he being Obama, puts forth a $4.1 trillion budget. When last year, if I'm not mistaken, in 2015, we set an all-time record for money incoming to any government in the history of the world at $3.3 trillion, and he puts us $800 billion farther behind the eight ball. Am I wrong here?
That's exactly right. I think that, one of the things that the listener, brought up is that folks are just getting, disappointed with their elected officials in Washington, not hearing them. And I completely sympathize with that. I mean, one of the big budget fights that's going on right now that the conservatives are trying to make a stand on in Congress is how to write this House budget. And if you look at where Paul Ryan wants to be on the House budget, he wants to be exactly where Obama is in 2017. There are literally no differences between the Speaker of the House and Barack Obama on what to spend on the federal government in 2017.
So I'm confused. I thought Paul Ryan was the guy that had this budget bill that Democrats kicked and screamed about because it would, bring spending under control. You're telling me that Paul Ryan is not doing anything to bring spending under control any more than anybody else?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's when Paul Ryan was chairman of the Budget Committee. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, wants to spend almost $1.1 trillion on funding the government this year, and that is exactly where Barack Obama wants to be as well.
So what? So when people say, "What's the difference?" What is the difference?
You know what? In reality, there isn't much of a difference, and that's why I wrote about a week ago a piece in our Daily Signal called "It's Time for Congress to Pass a Conservative Budget." Because what I would like to see is for Congress to just abandon the Boehner-Obama spending agreement that Boehner negotiated with the White House on his way out the door last fall, and pass a conservative budget, show folks back home what they stand for, and then start marking up bills that bring current law into compliance with the budget that represents their values. And, if those bills end up dying in the Senate or not signed by the president, then that's fine. I mean, basically what that does is that it shows folks back home why we need a change in leadership. But to essentially be complicit with where Obama is just I just can't believe it.
It starts to appear as if there is an agenda to destroy America. I mean, that's what, at some point, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't wear a tinfoil hat, although some days I'm wondering if I should. Because at some point it starts to appear as if there's an agenda, because nobody can be this stupid. Nobody can be stupid enough because under Obama's spending plan that you now tell me Paul Ryan supports, will be another $9 trillion in debt over the next decade. It's an insurmountable amount of debt. It's the kind of debt that would bring America to its knees and force socialism upon us, because people would have, there would be a political rebellion. And you look at Bernie Sanders, he's a symptom of what's going wrong with the spending in this country. When 25,000 people who have no clue about what socialism truly leads to gather to cheer this guy on, it's a symptom of what's going on. So it makes me think there's an agenda. They couldn't beat us militarily. They couldn't beat us politically. But if they can destroy us financially, then they can force the whole world into a one-world type socialist movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I like I said, I think that part of what's going on here, and we're seeing this reflected in, we saw this reflected in New Hampshire, and we're also seeing this we saw this reflected in Iowa. Is the fact that I think that people are getting tired of sending folks to Washington, and then those folks in Washington, not listening to them and not doing what they said that they were going to do when they got up here, and that is one of the things that's essentially driving the election results in these presidential primaries.
Is there anybody that, and you've got about 30 seconds here, I'll give you the last word, but is there anybody that you see running on either side anywhere, anybody that you see running for president that might have a shot at throwing the brakes or turning this thing around?
Well, I'll say that I've worked with Cruz's folks, and I know that he's a believer, and I know that he has shown that he can stand up to the Washington special interests. The same thing with Trump. Trump is an outsider who has shown that he can do the same thing. I would be reluctant to engage with anybody who has come to Washington and essentially done the exact opposite of what they were sent here to do.
Fair enough. Paul Winfree, Have to Run from the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Trump's opposed by everybody. Maybe that's something to think about. All right, getting down to it on this Free for All Friday. 888-900-9966. Martin on the line in Cadillac, WATT territory there. Martin is a doctor and wants to talk about a couple of things here before we run out of time. Martin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Doug. With regard to the issue brought up with hospitals charging large amounts of money, big insurance companies want hospitals to charge gargantuan fees because the insurance companies know they won't pay that, but they can scare employers and patients into think that without insurance, you're going to be paying these really high rates. Hospitals charge high rates knowing they're not going to get compensated from insurance companies, because then they can say that the difference between what they charge and what they get is lack of compensation. So that's how that works. If you want to see price transparency in hospitals, you can look at the Oklahoma Surgical Center.
Mm-hmm.
They are price transparent. You can see the costs. They're significantly lower.
Martin, I greatly appreciate the call. I wish I'd been listening to the radio show you were listening to. It sounds like it was really interesting. But that wasn't this one. I appreciate the call, WATT.
It was last week.
Oh, last week. I got you.
Early in the week.
I got you. All right. I'm going, gosh, you lost me there for a second, Martin. I'm with you. So that makes sense. So that's where all the charges go. So how do we fix it then?
Price transparency. Getting health savings accounts, getting it back between the patient and the physician.
The leftists will never let us do that, though. Health savings accounts. No, health savings accounts are a great idea because then you're responsible for your own health and your own money. How does the government?
That's right.
How does the government put you under your?
But Obamacare is not sustainable. It won't work in the long term.
See, I should listen to my own program sometimes, Martin. I might learn something. See, and I appreciate it because you're exactly right, and I appreciate you joining in because Obamacare is not sustainable. And health savings accounts are a great idea. I just wish they were a reality because people would save more of their own money. They wouldn't squander it, and they'd have choices about their own health care. Anyhow, I guess sometimes we talk about too much because I misplaced where that was in my memory bank. That's all right. It's been a long week. So much to talk about, so much to keep up with. I'm glad Martin did. You should as well. Have a great weekend, everyone. Don't miss the weekend edition of the Steve Gruber Show, and we'll talk soon.